she warmed a mysterious stranger in the rain, the Vampire King returned to make her his queen. Welcome, everyone. Tonight I'm going to tell you a story about kindness, darkness, and a love that defied two worlds. So settle in, because what started on a stormy night changed everything. The rain came down like bullets that October evening, turning the cobblestone streets of Ashwick into rivers of mud and fallen leaves. Most people had the good sense to stay indoors, huddled by their fireplaces with warm tea and worried glances at their windows. But not Myra Ashford. Myra was running through the downpour, her worn coat doing little to keep out the cold, clutching a bundle of herbs she just purchased from the apothecary. Her grandmother's fever had worsened, and she needed these medicines tonight, not tomorrow, not when the storm passed. Tonight. She was cutting through the old cemetery, a shortcut she normally avoided, but tonight time mattered more than superstition, when she saw him. At first Myra thought it was a corpse. The figure was slumped against a moss-covered headstone, completely still, head bowed. Rain streamed down blonde hair that seemed almost silver in the lightning flashes. His clothes were strange, elegant but torn, like he'd walked through thorns for miles. Every instinct told her to keep running. This was a cemetery at night during a storm. Nothing good could come from this. But then she saw his hand move, just slightly, fingers curling against the mud. Oh, for heaven's sake, Myra muttered to herself, already knowing she couldn't just leave him there. She approached carefully. Sir, are you hurt? No response. She came closer, kneeling in the mud beside him, her medicines clutched protectively to her chest. Up close she could see he was young, maybe late 20s, with a face so pale it was almost translucent. His lips had a blue tinge. Hypothermia, she thought. He's freezing to death. Sir, can you hear me? She touched his shoulder, and even through his wet clothes she could feel how cold he was. Ice cold. His eyes opened. Myra's breath caught. She'd never seen eyes like that, pale amber, almost gold, with a clarity that seemed to pierce right through her. For a moment they stared at each other, and she felt something shift in the air between them, something she couldn't name. You should run, he whispered, his voice rough and accented in a way she couldn't place. Leave me. You'll die out here, Myra said firmly, already making her decision. She wasn't a large woman, but she was stronger than she looked. Can you stand? My cottage isn't far. You don't understand. I understand you're half frozen and we're both getting pneumonia if we stay here arguing. She slipped his arm over her shoulders, grunting at his weight. Come on, one foot in front of the other. She didn't know why she did it. Myra Ashford was practical, cautious, the kind of woman who planned everything and took few risks. But something about those golden eyes, about the loneliness she saw in them, made her unable to walk away. The journey to her cottage took 20 agonizing minutes. The stranger, she didn't even know his name, could barely walk, leaning heavily against her. Several times Myra thought they'd both collapse into the mud, but she gritted her teeth and kept going. Her cottage was small, just 2 rooms on the edge of the village, where she lived with her grandmother. She managed to get him inside and onto the chair nearest the fireplace, where embers still glowed from the morning's fire. Gran, Myra called out, but only a weak cough answered from the bedroom. Still sleeping. Good, she didn't need to explain this yet. She worked quickly, building up the fire until it roared with heat, then turned to the stranger. In the firelight she could see him better, and her breath caught again. He was beautiful, there was no other word for it. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, that waterfall of blonde hair now dripping onto her floor, but it was a cold beauty like a statue carved from marble. I need to get you out of these wet clothes, Myra said, trying to sound practical and not flustered. I have some of my grandfather's old things. No, his hand caught her wrist and she gasped. His grip was gentle but firm, and his skin, it was warming now but still unnaturally cool. Just the fire, that's enough. You'll catch your death. A strange smile crossed his lips. I won't, trust me. There was something odd about the way he said it, but Myra was too tired to argue. She grabbed a blanket from the chest and draped it over his shoulders, then set about making tea, chamomile with honey, the same she'd been giving her grandmother. As the kettle boiled, she snuck glances at him. He sat perfectly still, staring into the flames with an expression she couldn't read. Sad, haunted, both. What's your name? She asked finally, pouring the tea into 2 chipped cups. He was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer, Then, Kale. Kale, she repeated. It was unusual, foreign sounding. I'm Myra. What were you doing in the cemetery in this storm? Another long pause. Running. From what? His golden eyes fixed on her, and she saw something ancient in them, something that made her skin prickle. From what I am. Before Myra could ask what he meant, a coughing fit erupted from her grandmother's room. She jumped up, grabbing her bundle of herbs. I have to make medicine for my grandmother. Will you be all right here? Kale nodded slowly, and she hurried into the other room. Her grandmother, Helena, was awake but weak, her skin papery and hot with fever. Myra spent the next hour crushing herbs, brewing tinctures, coaxing her grandmother to drink. Finally, Helena fell back asleep, breathing easier. When Myra returned to the main room, she found Kale exactly where she'd left him, though the blanket had slipped from his shoulders. His clothes had somehow dried completely, which was impossible given how soaked they'd been. He was staring at the small shelf where Myra kept her few precious books. You read, he said. It wasn't a question. When I can, books are expensive, but the vicar lets me borrow from the church library sometimes. She picked up the blanket and moved to drape it over him again, but he stood abruptly, and suddenly he was much taller than she'd realized, towering over her. I should go, he said. It's still storming. Myra, the way he said her name made her shiver. Do you know what tomorrow is? She frowned. October 31st, All Hallows' Eve. The night when the veil between worlds is thinnest, when creatures of darkness walk freely. He took a step toward her and the firelight caught his eyes, making them glow. You invited me in. You warmed me. You showed me kindness I haven't known in. He stopped, jaw clenching. In a very long time. So I'm going to give you a gift, Myra Ashford. I'm going to leave and you're going to forget you ever saw me. I don't understand. He reached out and his fingers brushed her cheek with impossible gentleness. His touch was cool, sending electricity through her skin. You have a good heart, too good for the darkness. Forget me. And then he was moving toward the door, faster than should be possible. Wait, Myra called. At least take some food or... But when she blinked, he was gone. The door stood open, rain blowing in, but there was no sign of Kale anywhere in the storm. It was as if he'd vanished into smoke. Myra stood there, dripping and confused, her hand pressed to her cheek where he touched her. The spot still tingled. What just happened? She closed and latched the door, then noticed something on the chair where he'd been sitting. A single black rose, its petals perfect despite the storm, despite the impossibility of black roses existing at all. Myra picked it up carefully and somewhere deep in her chest, her heart began to beat faster. She had the strangest feeling that this wasn't over. That Kale, whoever or whatever he was, would come back. And she was right. But she had no idea what she'd actually invited into her life that stormy night. Because Kale wasn't just running from what he was running from an entire kingdom. A kingdom of darkness, of blood, of immortal politics and ancient feuds. And in 3 days he would return to claim her. 3 days passed, and Myra tried to convince herself it had been a dream. But that black rose, it sat in a vase by her window, and it never wilted, never died. A constant reminder of golden eyes and impossible disappearances. And then he came back. The fever finally broke on the 3rd day. Myra's grandmother woke up clear-eyed and hungry, asking for soup and wondering why Myra looked so exhausted. Myra didn't mention the stranger, the black rose, or the fact that she'd barely slept, jumping at every sound outside. That evening, Myra was in the village square, selling the small cakes she baked for extra money. November had come in cold but clear, and people were in good spirits, still full of All Hallows candy and gossip. Did you hear? Mrs. Wenther, the baker's wife, leaned in conspiratorially. Lord Blackwood's estate, someone broke in last night. 3 of his guards were found unconscious, drained of blood, completely white. Myra's hands stilled on the cake she was wrapping, drained of blood. Like something, drank it. Mrs. Wenther's eyes were wide with delicious horror. The doctor said he'd never seen anything like it. And that's not all. There've been reports of strange figures in the woods, people disappearing from the roads at night. Some are saying it's vampires. Vampires aren't real, Myra said firmly, but her voice shook slightly. Mrs. Wenther leaned closer. Then explain the bodies, dear. Myra couldn't. She finished selling her cakes in a daze, her mind whirling. It was ridiculous. Vampires were stories, legends to scare children. But she kept thinking about Cale, his cold skin, his impossible speed, the way he dried instantly by the fire. From what I am. That's what he'd said, what he was running from. No, impossible. She was walking home as dusk fell, lost in thought, when she realized she was being followed. Not by Cale, these were rougher presences, multiple footsteps trying and failing to be quiet. Myra's heart began to race. She picked up her pace, clutching her empty basket, cursing herself for staying out so late. Little human, a voice called out, dripping with amusement. Where are you going in such a hurry? Myra spun around. 3 figures emerged from the shadows between houses, 2 men and a woman, all beautiful in an unsettling way, with 2 pale skin and eyes that reflected the dying light like cats. The woman had dark hair and a cruel smile. Leave me alone, Myra said, trying to sound brave. Oh, I don't think so. The woman tilted her head. You see, we've been looking for something, someone actually, and his scent is all over you. She moved forward impossibly fast, and suddenly she was right in front of Myra, inhaling deeply. Yes, you reek of him, of our precious runaway king. I don't know what you're talking about. The woman's hand shot out, gripping Myra's throat and lifting her off the ground with terrifying ease. Myra gasped, clawing at the iron grip, her vision already spotting. Don't lie to me, human. Cale was here. Where did he go? I don't know, Myra choked out. Then you're useless. The woman's fangs extended, and Myra realized with crystal clarity that she was about to die. This was real. Vampires were real, and she was going to be killed in an alley behind the butcher's shop. But then a voice cut through the darkness, cold as winter frost. Let her go, Seraphine. The woman, Seraphine, froze. Myra was dropped unceremoniously, gasping and coughing. Through watering eyes, she saw Cale standing at the end of the alley, and he was different. He wore black now, elegant clothes that looked like they cost more than Myra's cottage. His blonde hair was pulled back, revealing the sharp, aristocratic lines of his face. But it was his presence that had changed. He radiated power, authority, danger. This wasn't the half-frozen stranger from the cemetery. This was someone else entirely. Your Majesty, Seraphine said, and the title hit Myra like a physical blow. She bowed mockingly. We've been searching everywhere for you. I didn't ask to be found. Cale's eyes never left Myra, checking her for injuries. Something flickered in his gaze when he saw the marks on her throat, rage barely contained. You hurt her. She's just a human. She is under my protection. His voice dropped to a lethal whisper. Touch her again and I will end you, cousin or not. The 2 male vampires shifted nervously, but Seraphine laughed. Your protection? My lord, have you forgotten who you are, what you are? She's food, not a pet. In a blur of movement, Cale had Seraphine pinned against the wall, his hand around her throat the same way she'd held Myra. I am your king, you will remember that. A king who abandoned his throne, Seraphine gasped out. A king who ran away like a coward after what happened to. Enough, Cale released her, stepping back. Return to the kingdom, tell the council I will come back, but on my terms. And the human, Seraphine's eyes glittered with malice. Is none of your concern, go now. For a moment Myra thought Seraphine would refuse, but then she bowed, a real bow this time, and melted into shadows along with her companions, disappearing as if they'd never existed. Myra stood there, shaking her back against the alley wall. Cale turned to her, and the dangerous power seemed to dim slightly, replaced by something almost gentle. Myra, I'm sorry, I didn't think they'd track my scent to you. He moved closer slowly, as if approaching a frightened animal. Did she hurt you badly? You're a vampire, Myra whispered. A king. He stopped, jaw clenching. Yes. She called you your majesty. Yes. And you're going too. What? Kill me now, drink my blood. Her voice was rising, hysteria creeping in. Was this all some game? No, he looked pained. Myra, listen to me. Why should I? You lied to me. I never lied, I just didn't tell you everything. He ran a hand through his blonde hair, frustration evident. That night in the cemetery, I was running from my kingdom, from my responsibilities, from a throne I never wanted. I was trying to feel human again, even if just for a moment. And then you, he met her eyes. You treated me with kindness, not because of who I was, but despite what I looked like. A stranger, possibly dangerous, definitely trouble. You helped me anyway. Myra's hands were still shaking. Why are you here now? Cale took a breath he didn't need. Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. Because in 3 centuries of existence I've never met anyone with a heart like yours. And because... He stepped closer, and this time Myra didn't back away. Because my world is about to erupt into war and you're in danger because of me. I need to keep you safe. War. The vampire clans are fracturing. There are those who want to stay in the shadows, coexisting quietly with humans, and those who want to conquer, to rule openly, to make humans cattle. His expression darkened. I've been holding them back for decades, but when I disappeared, thinking I could escape it all, I left a power vacuum. Now I have to return and face what I ran from. Myra's mind was reeling. This is insane. This is, vampires are real, you're a king, there's going to be a war. Yes. And what does any of this have to do with me? Cale looked at her for a long moment, and there was something in his eyes that made her heart skip. Everything, Myra, it has everything to do with you. Before she could ask what he meant, he glanced at the darkening sky. I need to get you somewhere safe. My enemies know about you now, and Seraphine isn't the worst of them. Will you trust me? One more time. Every logical bone in Myra's body screamed at her to run, to refuse, to get as far from this supernatural nightmare as possible. But she looked into those golden eyes and remembered the lost, lonely figure in the cemetery. The way he told her to run, to forget him, trying to protect her even then. My grandmother is already protected. I had allies place wards around your cottage the moment I realized I'd been tracked. He offered his hand. Please, Myra, let me keep you safe. She thought of Mrs. Wenther's gossip, of drained bodies and disappearances, of Seraphine's casual cruelty. Whether she liked it or not, she was already part of this world now. Myra took his hand. It was cool and solid, and the moment their fingers intertwined, she felt that same electric jolt from before. Cale's eyes widened slightly, as if he felt it too. Hold on to me. Why, oh God. The world blurred. Suddenly they were moving faster than thought, the village disappearing behind them in streaks of colour. Myra buried her face in Cale's chest, feeling his arm locked securely around her waist. In seconds, or was it minutes, they stopped. When Myra opened her eyes, they were standing in front of a massive estate she'd only seen from a distance. Ravencrest Manor, the abandoned mansion on the hill that locals said was haunted. Turns out they weren't wrong about the supernatural part. Welcome, Cale said softly, to my home, at least the one I've kept in the human world. The manor was dark but elegant, all Gothic arches and stained glass. Cale led her inside to a library filled with more books than Myra had ever seen, with a fire already crackling in the hearth. You'll be safe here. The manor is protected by ancient magic. No vampire can enter without my permission. He gestured to the shelves. You're welcome to read anything. There's a kitchen with human food I keep it stocked for. Well, I'm not sure why anymore. Hope maybe. Hope for what? He smiled sadly. That I might have a reason to entertain human guests again someday. Myra hugged herself, still processing everything. Cale, why me? Really, you're a king. I'm a baker's granddaughter who can barely afford medicine. Why would you care if I'm safe? He moved closer, and the firelight caught his features, making him look both ethereal and achingly real. Do you believe in fate, Myra? I don't know. I believe in kindness, in choice. Then believe this is my choice. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. 300 years and I'd never felt warmth, not really, but that night when you helped me, when you looked at me like I was worth saving. His voice roughened. You made me want to be worth it. Myra's breath caught. This close, she could see flecks of darker gold in his eyes, could feel the strange energy that hummed around him. You're a vampire, I'm human. This, whatever this is, it's impossible. I know. You drink blood to survive. I do, though not from the innocent. I have strict rules about that, which is part of why my kingdom is in chaos. He smiled wryly. I'm a terrible vampire in many ways. And you're going back to fight a war? Yes. You could die, or I could, or both of us. Yes. Myra looked up at him, at this impossible creature who'd somehow crashed into her ordinary life and turned it inside out. Then why are we wasting time talking? She saw the moment her meaning hit him, his eyes widening. Myra, you don't have to. I know I don't have to, I want to. She raised her hand to his face, feeling the cool smoothness of his skin. You said that night when the veil was thin, I showed you kindness you hadn't known in a very long time. Well, you showed me something too. You showed me there's more to the world than I ever imagined, and if we only have a short time before you go back to your kingdom. She smiled, surprising herself with her boldness. I don't want to spend it afraid. Cale's hand covered hers, pressing her palm to his cheek. For a moment he just stood there, and Myra could swear she saw vulnerability in his ancient eyes. You are extraordinary, he whispered. And then he kissed her. And oh, what a kiss it was. Gentle at first, almost reverent, as if he was afraid she might break. But when Myra kissed back, rising on her toes and threading her fingers through his blonde hair, something ignited between them. 300 years of loneliness meeting a lifetime of quiet dreams, colliding in the firelight like two stars finally finding each other across an impossible distance. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Cale rested his forehead against hers. I have to go back in 2 days, he murmured. To prevent the war, to face the council, it will be dangerous. Then we have 2 days. Myra, she looked at him steadily. 2 days to be ourselves before you're a king again and I'm, whatever I am to your world. Cale pulled back slightly, his expression turning serious. That's what I need to tell you, the real reason Seraphine and the others are hunting you. Myra's stomach dropped. What? There's an old law in vampire culture. Ancient. If a vampire of royal blood claims a human as their mate, their true mate, that human becomes part of the kingdom, protected, elevated, powerful. I don't understand. He took both her hands in his. Myra Ashford, I didn't come back just to protect you. I came back to ask you something impossible. His golden eyes burned into hers. Come with me to the kingdom, not as a prisoner or a pet, but as my equal, my queen. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. You're insane, Myra breathed. Probably, he smiled, but it was strained. But you're my mate, Myra. I knew it the moment you touched me in that cemetery. The bond, it's already forming between us. You feel it, don't you? The pull. She did, God help her, she did. That electric connection, the way her heart raced around him, the strange sense of rightness when he was near. I can't be a queen, I don't know how. You know how to be kind, how to be brave, how to see people, even monsters, and choose compassion. His grip tightened on her hands. That's all a good queen needs, the rest I can teach you. And if I say no? Pain flashed across his face. Then I'll still protect you, I'll still end this war, but I'll do it alone, and when it's over I'll leave you to your life. I won't burden you with this world anymore. Myra's mind spun. 2 days ago her biggest concern was affording medicine. Now a vampire king was asking her to rule beside him. It was madness. It was impossible. It was. She looked at Cale, really looked at him. Beneath the power and immortality, she saw someone who was tired, someone who'd been alone for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to be seen, someone who'd run away because the weight of a crown was crushing him. Someone who needed her, not because she was special or magical, but because she'd shown simple human kindness. I need time to think, she said finally. Cale nodded, releasing her hands even though she could see it cost him. Of course, you have 2 days. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. But those 2 days would change everything. Because while Myra and Cale explored the possibility of an impossible love, dark forces in the vampire kingdom were already moving, and Seraphine had returned with news that would set the world ablaze. Time was running out faster than either of them knew. The vampire council met in the ancient throne room deep beneath the earth, where no sunlight had touched for 1,000 years, and Seraphine stood before them with a smile like poisoned honey. Myra woke in a bed softer than clouds, wrapped in silk sheets that probably cost more than her cottage. For a moment she forgot where she was, then memory crashed back. Vampires, Cale, Queen. She sat up, finding herself in an elegant bedroom with morning light streaming through heavy curtains. Someone had left clothes for her, a simple but beautiful dress in deep blue. When she emerged, following the smell of food, she found Kale in the kitchen. He looked oddly domestic, setting out bread and jam and tea, still wearing black but with his sleeves rolled up. When he saw her, his entire face softened. "You're awake, I wasn't sure. I thought maybe you'd run during the night." "I considered it," Myra admitted, sitting at the table. "Then I realized I had nowhere to run to, not really." He poured her tea with surprising grace. "Your grandmother is well. I had a message sent this morning. She thinks you're staying with a friend in the next village." "Thank you," Myra sipped the tea, studying him. "Tell me about your world. If I'm going to decide whether to be part of it, I should understand it." So Kale told her. He spoke of the vampire kingdom, not one physical place but a network of ancient families spread across the world, bound by blood and law. He explained the clans, the Nightborn who valued tradition, the Bloodsworn who wanted war with humans, the Shadowkin who preferred isolation. As king, Kale had spent decades keeping fragile peace between them. "And then Lyanna died," he said quietly, staring into his own untouched tea. "My sister, she was, the good one, the one who actually wanted to unite our people, to find real peace with humans. She fell in love with a human man and the Bloodsworn clan killed them both to make a point." Myra's hand found his across the table. "I'm so sorry. I failed her. I was too slow to act, too caught up in politics and diplomacy. And after she died, He laughed bitterly. "I ran like a coward. I abandoned my throne because I couldn't face it anymore." "That's not cowardice, that's grief." His eyes met hers, surprised. "The council wouldn't agree." "I'm not the council," Myra squeezed his hand. "You're allowed to be hurt, Kale, even kings, even vampires." Something in his expression cracked, and for a moment Myra saw the raw pain beneath. Then he composed himself, turning his hand to interlace their fingers. "See, this is why I need you. You make me remember what it's like to be, not just a king, a person." They spent the day together, and it was strange and wonderful. Kale showed her his library, centuries of collected books. They walked the manor grounds as he explained vampire politics. He taught her to dance in the ballroom, moving her through waltzes with supernatural grace while humming old songs. And slowly, Myra felt herself falling, not just for his beauty or power, but for the small things. The way he listened intently when she talked about her life, as if her small stories mattered. The way he laughed, really laughed, when she made a joke like he'd forgotten how. The way he looked at her as if she was the most precious thing in all his long existence. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Myra asked the question that had been bothering her. "What happens if I agree? How does a human become a vampire queen?" Kale was quiet for a moment. "There's a ceremony, a blood bond. I would share my blood with you and you with me. It wouldn't make you a vampire, not fully. But it would extend your life, give you certain abilities, tie your soul to mine." He met her eyes. "It's permanent, Myra. Once done, it can't be undone. You would be bound to me and I to you for as long as we both exist." "That sounds like marriage." "It's more than marriage, it's two lives becoming one." He turned to face her fully. "I won't lie, it's a huge sacrifice. You'd be giving up a normal life, normal aging, the chance to have children." His voice roughened. "Vampires can't reproduce, I can't give you that." Myra absorbed this. She'd never thought much about children, but knowing the option would be gone. "What would I gain?" she asked. Kale smiled sadly. "Power, immortality or near enough, the ability to change both our worlds, vampire and human, a kingdom that desperately needs someone like you to balance someone like me." He paused. "And me, for whatever that's worth." "It's worth a lot," Myra said softly. Before they could continue, the temperature in the room dropped. The fire flickered and nearly died. Kale was on his feet instantly, pushing Myra behind him. "They're breaking the wards," he said grimly. "The Bloodsworn, they must have." The window exploded inward. Vampires poured through, not 3 this time, but a dozen, led by a man with dark hair and red eyes that gleamed with malice. "Hello, cousin," the man said, and Myra recognized him from Kale's descriptions. "Lord Thuron of the Bloodsworn clan, come to drag you back to the kingdom." "I was coming back," Kale said, still shielding Myra. "You didn't need to break my home." "Oh, but we did. You see, the council has made a decision in your absence." Thuron's smile was cruel. They've decided you're unfit to rule, too sympathetic to humans, too weak, and they've chosen me as the new king. Kale's power flared, filling the room with pressure that made Myra's ears pop. You have no right. We have every right. You abandoned your throne, and now, Theron's eyes fixed on Myra and she felt like prey beneath a predator's gaze. Now we find you've taken a human pet. How fitting. I think I'll keep her when I kill you. A nice trophy. Touch her and die, Kale snarled, and Myra had never heard such menace in a voice. Bold words for a king who's outnumbered. Theron gestured and his vampires spread out, surrounding them. Come quietly and I'll make her death painless. Resist and I'll let my soldiers play with her first. Myra's heart was racing, but she stepped out from behind Kale. I'm not a pet or a trophy. Theron laughed. The human speaks, how adorable. She's my mate, Kale said, and the room went silent. My chosen queen, and if you've done your research on ancient lore, Theron, you know what that means. Theron's smile faded. You're bluffing, you haven't completed the bond, I can tell she's still human. For now, but the claim is made. Kale's hand found Myra's, squeezing once. Myra Ashford is under royal protection. Harm her and every clan law gives me the right to execute you. Laws mean nothing when you're dead. Theron lunged and chaos erupted. Kale moved like lightning, meeting Theron's attack and sending him crashing through a wall. The other vampires rushed forward and Myra screamed, but Kale was everywhere at once, moving too fast to track, throwing vampires aside like dolls. But there were too many. Even with his power, Kale was being overwhelmed. Myra saw blood, his blood black in the firelight, as claws raked across his back. No, without thinking, Myra grabbed a broken piece of wood from the shattered window, oak, she noticed distantly, and drove it into the back of the vampire attacking Kale. The vampire shrieked and crumbled to dust. Holy ground, Myra remembered. The manor was built on holy ground, the wood was blessed. She grabbed more wood, throwing pieces to Kale, who caught them with a flash of fierce pride in his eyes. Together they fought, king and human, vampire and mortal, moving in sync as if they'd been doing this for years. But Theron was strong, ancient and cruel. He got past Kale's guard and grabbed Myra, fangs extending toward her throat. I think I'll drain her dry, he hissed. Let you watch your precious human die. Then you'll have to go through me. The voice came from the doorway and everyone froze. A group of vampires stood there, but these ones looked different. Noble, powerful, and at their head was a woman with silver hair and eyes like storm clouds. Lady Isadora, Kale breathed, of the Nightborn. Your Majesty, she bowed to Kale, ignoring Theron. Forgive our intrusion, we came as soon as we heard Theron was attempting a coup. Her cold gaze fixed on Theron. The council did not vote to replace you, my king. Theron lied. She's lying, Theron shouted, but his grip on Myra loosened. Am I? Isadora smiled like a blade. Then explain why the heads of 3 of the 5 clans are standing behind me, ready to testify otherwise. The vampires behind her stepped forward, and Myra saw Theron's face go pale, well paler. He released Myra, shoving her toward Kale, who caught her instantly. This isn't over, Theron spat. The Bloodsworn will not serve a king who consorts with humans. Then the Bloodsworn can be disbanded, Kale said coldly, still holding Myra close. I am done with your clan's warmongering, done with the violence. When I return to the kingdom, things will change. You can't. I am your king. The power in Kale's voice drove everyone to their knees, everyone except Myra, protected in his arms. And you will obey or you will burn. Those are your options. Theron glared up at him with pure hatred, but he bowed his head. As you command, your majesty. Lady Isadora, please escort Lord Theron and his soldiers back to the kingdom. They will await my judgment. Kale's tone softened slightly. And thank you for your loyalty. Always my king. Isadora's eyes flickered to Myra with curiosity, but she simply bowed again. In moments, she and the other vampires were gone, leaving the manor in shambles. Kale immediately turned to Myra, hands running over her, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? Did he bite you? I'm fine, I'm Kale, you're bleeding. She touched the gashes on his back and he winced. I'll heal, vampire, remember, but he let her fuss over him, seeming to draw comfort from her touch. They sank onto the one intact couch, both shaking with adrenaline. Myra's dress was torn, her hair wild, and she just helped kill vampires with blessed wood. It was insane. I need to go back, Kale said quietly. Tonight, if Theron was willing to attempt a coup, the kingdom is more unstable than I thought. I know. Myra, he turned to her, and in his eyes she saw fear. Real, genuine fear. Come with me. I know it's insane. I know I'm asking the impossible, but I can't do this without you. I can't be the king they need without you reminding me why it matters. Myra looked around the destroyed library, thought of Theron's casual cruelty, of the war brewing between clans. She thought of her grandmother, her cottage, her simple life. Then she looked at Kale, this impossible, ancient, powerful creature who'd crashed into her world and shown her magic and danger, and a love she'd never imagined. If I do this, she said slowly, I have conditions. Hope flared in his eyes. Anything. I want protections for humans, real ones, laws that prevent what happened to your sister, that stop humans from being food or pets. Done. I want to visit my grandmother regularly. I won't abandon her. Of course, we can set up arrangements. And I want you to promise me something. She took his face in her hands. Promise me that no matter how hard it gets, no matter what the council says or what threats come, you won't run again. We face it together or not at all. Kale's hands covered hers and she felt them trembling. I promise, together, always. Then yes, Myra smiled, feeling terrified and exhilarated. Yes, I'll be your queen. The kiss this time was different, desperate, joyful, sealing a promise that would change two worlds. When they broke apart, Kale pressed his forehead to hers. The bond, he murmured. We should complete it before we go, if you're sure. I'm sure. He pulled back, producing a small dagger from somewhere. Your blood and mine, mixed and shared. It will hurt for a moment, but then, he smiled softly. Then you'll be mine and I'll be yours, and nothing can break that. Myra held out her hand, barely trembling. Kale drew the blade across her palm, a sharp sting then across his own. Black blood welled up and he pressed their palms together. The effect was immediate. Power rushed through Myra like lightning, like fire, like falling and flying at once. She gasped, feeling Kale's presence flood into her mind, his emotions, his memories, 300 years of life pouring into her soul. And she felt herself flowing into him, her hopes, fears, dreams, the simple human love that had captured a king's heart. When it faded, they were both breathing hard, still pressed palm to palm. Myra looked down and watched the cut on her hand heal in seconds, leaving only a thin silver scar. How do you feel? Kale whispered. Myra flexed her fingers, feeling strength she'd never had, sensing Kale's heartbeat as if it were her own. Powerful, strange, like myself, but more. Welcome to immortality, my queen. My queen, the words should have terrified her, but instead they felt right. They left for the vampire kingdom that night. Kale carried Myra in his arms, moving so fast the world blurred, until they stood before a massive entrance hidden in a mountainside, the gateway to the underground realm where vampires had lived for millennia. Ready? Kale asked. Myra looked at the dark entrance, then at the man, the vampire, who held her. She thought of the girl she'd been just days ago, selling cakes in the village square. That Myra would have run screaming. But she wasn't that girl anymore. Ready, she said. The throne room was vast, filled with hundreds of vampires who gasped when Kale entered with Myra at his side. She wore a dress Isadora had provided, black and silver, elegant and regal, and she held her head high despite her racing heart. Kale led her to the twin thrones at the room's center. The crowd murmured, shocked, as he turned to address them. I am Kale Theron, your king. I abandoned you in grief and pain, and for that I apologize. His voice carried through the chamber. But I have returned, and I have returned changed. He gestured to Myra. This is Myra Ashford, my mate and your queen. She is human, yes, but she has shown me something I'd forgotten. That strength isn't just power, it's compassion, choice, courage. Theron stepped forward from the crowd, bruised but defiant. You would put a human on our throne. It's an abomination. It's evolution, Kale countered. We have lived in shadow for too long, feeding on fear and blood. Under our rule, Myra's and mine, things will change. We will find new ways to coexist with humans. We will end the violence. We will build something better. And if we refuse, Theron challenged. Kale's eyes glowed gold. Then you are welcome to challenge me for the throne, single combat as is tradition, winner takes the crown. The room went silent. Everyone knew Kale was the oldest, the strongest. Thuron would lose and he knew it. After a long moment he bowed his head. I accept your rule, your majesty. One by one the vampires knelt, some eagerly, some reluctantly, but all of them bowing to their king and his impossible human queen. Isadora approached, offering a silver circlet to Myra. Your crown, my queen. Myra took it with shaking hands, and Kale helped her place it on her head. Then he sat on his throne and pulled her down beside him, their hands still intertwined. Let it be known, Kale declared, that a new era begins tonight, an era of change, of peace, of unity between our peoples, and anyone who threatens that, his grip on Myra's hand tightened, threatens us both. The vampires responded as one, long live the king, long live the queen. And so it was that a simple act of kindness on a stormy night changed the fate of two worlds. Myra, the baker's granddaughter, became a queen. Kale, the lonely king, found his heart again. Together they would face challenges, resistance from traditionalists, threats from those who wanted war, the constant balance between two very different worlds. But they would face it together, always together. Because Myra had learned that love wasn't about choosing the safe path. It was about choosing the right person and walking whatever path opened up, hand in hand. And Kale had learned that a kingdom wasn't made by power alone. It was built on compassion, on the bonds between people, whether human or vampire, and on the radical choice to see others as worth saving. Months later, Myra stood on a balcony overlooking both the underground kingdom and, through a magical mirror, her grandmother's cottage where Helena was having tea with some new friends, vampires who'd volunteered to help protect the human villages. Kale wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Regrets, he asked softly. Myra leaned back into him, feeling his cool presence like a comforting shadow. Not even one. Not even when the Shadowkin delegation tried to poison you last week. I survived, didn't I? Perks of being bonded to the most powerful vampire alive. He laughed, pressing a kiss to her neck. You give yourself too little credit. You survived because you're clever and brave and entirely too stubborn. Flatterer. Truth-teller, he turned her in his arms, and even after all these months Myra's heart still skipped when she met those golden eyes. I love you, Myra Ashford, my queen, my salvation. I love you too, Kale, my king, my impossible miracle. They kissed there on the balcony, between worlds, between darkness and light. A vampire king and his human queen, proving that sometimes the greatest magic wasn't in blood or power or ancient laws. It was in the simple choice to be kind to a stranger in the rain. And there you have it, the story of how compassion conquered kingdoms, how love bridged impossible divides, and how a single act of warmth on a cold night changed everything. Because that's the thing about kindness, isn't it? You never know what doors it might open, what lives it might touch, what impossible love stories it might begin. What act of kindness will you do today that might just change everything? And if you want to watch the full extended stories, join my Patreon. The link is in the description below. Exclusive and uncensored episodes are available only on Patreon. Check the link in the description.